Hey guys, this is Moo Power here doing a tutorial video on how to beat a Terran Maxed Army as Protoss. So here I'm just showing you guys a saved scenario. I basically set up a Terran Maxed Army, a fortified Terran with vulture mines, tanks, Goliaths, turrets, and I have a Maxed Army as well. And I just saved this so I can just basically practice this one attack maneuver, because a lot of the times in this matchup, if you lose a big engagement in a very bad way, you could outright lose the game. Even it's just annoying as Protoss to lose in a game just because you lost that one big battle that you're building up for. And to have all your efforts just be wasted after one single battle that just decided the game, it can be very frustrating as a Protoss player. So this is just a good way to kind of practice that. So you see here I'm practicing trying to get in range of the mines and clear them away, but still staying out of range of the siege tanks. And you want to have at least a control group of Dragoons on each end, or however many fronts you're trying to get to get in within the siege tank lines, because if the mines are in front, the units are going to take their time in attacking the mines while you still have the siege tanks just killing your units. So you definitely want to clear the way, and so I'm going to attack with everything right now. So you see there was a couple mines in the front still, so my Dragoons weren't able to get in range of the tanks until a little bit later. And also my Zealots came in a little bit late from the right side. If they came in a little bit quicker, the siege tanks focus would have been more sporadic. Because the reason why you want to attack from all different angles is so that the siege tanks don't all splash in one area, because that means your units die a lot faster. Siege tanks have 70 attack with upgrades. Right now the computer's at 2-1 upgrades. So with a 2 attack upgrade, siege tanks get a 10 attack bonus, 5 for each upgrade. So basically they're taking down 80 HP, or shields in this case, which means it takes about 3 siege tank hits to kill a Dragoon. But if all the siege tanks fire at the Dragoon, then it's probably going to die. So you see there was only 1 siege tank in range to clear out that, to attack that Dragoon. So that's why it was still healthy. It didn't take any actual hit points, only the shields were depleted. But if 2 siege tanks attacked at once, then it would probably be somewhere in the yellow. But my point with that is, if you have a cluster of units that are all focused at the same time by all the siege tanks, then that group of units are just going to die within like a second or two. So it's better to have all the siege tanks fire kind of spread out, so that your units can survive that much longer, just so they can get in range to attack the siege tanks. And that, because of that, like, the longer your units survive, the more damage you're going to do, and that'll exponentially help you with the battle. Because if you have less units, you're kind of getting into a downward spiral where you lose harder when you don't have as many units. So I'm basically positioning my Zealots to where there's not many mines left, and then I'm gonna stasis again. Normally your Terran opponent is not going to allow you to just simply stasis their army that easily, but you know, it's a computer, what can you do? So there, those storms were pretty decent. I'm trying to remacro out of my gateways as fast as I can while the battle is going on. So I try to babysit what I can out of the battle, but then as soon as I feel like my time is better spent macroing, then that's where I'll switch to macroing out of the gateways. So that battle did not go as well as I intended, and yeah, so I still kind of lost that engagement. So here's a big reason that those Zealots did not come into play. If those Zealots helped in the battle, I bet you I might have won that battle. still going to clear out a lot of those tanks because there's no vultures to kind of cover the tanks. So you see there how effective Zealots are to trade. 12 Zealots for that many tanks is a pretty good trade. But yeah, so that just goes to show you need a combination of Dragoons and Zealots to kind of, the Dragoons to cover for the Zealots, and the Zealots to come in after the mines are cleared and the pathway is opened. So yeah, I'm trying to just skirt around, trying to pick off what I can. Now, the reason why I kind of move a couple Dragoons at a time is so that when you move Dragoons as a group or as a unit, a lot of the times Dragoons are very dumb. So when something gets in their way, or maybe a Dragoon is right in front of the other one, so the Dragoon decides to go a roundabout way of going to where you're clicking. Sometimes they get in range of the siege tank, and then that draws in the other Dragoons to try to attack, and it gets annoying. So you kind of have to babysit your Dragoons very well and kind of hold position them so they're not being drawn in. So you see there all the Dragoons are holding their position while still attacking. So for these maneuvers, you want to do hold position for your Dragoons, so they're not lured into attacking into the siege line. And you try to get as close to the mines as possible. So you see there, the tank hit that Dragoon, so I'm going to back off and clear the mines as I can. And then here again, I'm going to move my Dragoons up to the top where the spider mines are, and then my Zealots will come in from the bottom. And then here my Arbiters are coming back into play. And my Zealots got a little bit too close, so I'm going to back them off. So you see here that this is like a very precise type of play here. You know, as Protoss, you want to attack from many different angles and keep your units right at a knife edge balance of how close you want to get. And so you see here that some good storms coming off in the front of those tanks. My Zealots are coming in nicely, and then as soon as I can, I go back to macroing from the gateways. And I think that engagement went a lot better this time. So you see there, most of my forces, or at least a third of my forces, survived. The rest of his army is in stasis right now. So as soon as they thaw, then I'm going to just eliminate them. You want to kind of spread out your units so they don't all get splashed. So yeah. So even though I lost my entire force, his force is definitely takes a little bit longer for them for Terran to replace their siege tanks, and they're more expensive. So I think that's a good trade-off for me. And yep, so within a minute, I'm remaxed at 196. And then as the units are coming out, you want to definitely practice re-hawking them. So you see there how I'm holding shift. Well, I'm holding shift and then adding units to the group. So when I want to add a certain number of units to a designated control group, so I'll first try to obviously fill up the number 1 slot. So number 1 is obviously my first group of Dragoons, and then I'll have number 3 as my second control group of Dragoons. 4 is always going to be my Zealots, and then so on. So you always want to have that organization in your head. That way, when you re-hotkey your units and then organize or orchestrate some kind of attack, you know where all your units are going to be. Because as you saw when I was attacking the Terran Army, I had one full control group of Dragoons on one end and another control group of Dragoons on the other side. So if I wasn't cognizant of which control group of Dragoons were on which side, I could have sent the wrong Dragoons to come in first and then the other one to come in later, and that would have been a disaster. Basically, you want to be coordinated in your attacks to make sure that all your units come in at the exact same time, so you can get the maximum surround in a concave fashion. So yeah, that's pretty much how you want to organize that. Just adding some more gateways, and yeah, so definitely want to have a mix of Dragoons, probably 2.5 control groups of Dragoons, so 2 full groups and then maybe like 6 Dragoons more, and then the rest are Zealots, High Templars, and Arbiters. So yeah, I think this is the last take of me trying to practice. So those Dragoons were a little too close, so I'm going to back them off immediately. Still got killed, and then so yeah, as you move the Dragoons as a unit, they're gonna get a little bit too close, so you definitely want to be careful. Just move a few at a time. Try to get as many of those spider mines off the field. So when you rush in with the Zealots and the Dragoons, they're not busy targeting the spider mines while the siege tanks are, you know, pummeling your Dragoons and Zealots. And then I'm gonna get my Arbiters into position. And then I'm going to clear off the bottom here, right there. So you want to have your Dragoons like kind of in a line and a concave if possible. So as soon as they're too close, you want to back them off. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but siege tanks have a slightly longer sight than, or slightly longer range than they have sight. So as soon as they scan or they have vision of your units, they can actually shoot further than you thought. So yeah, you see here how I have to try to get my Zealots a little back because the Vultures are too close. And as I'm trying to pick off the Vultures, my Dragoons are a little too close to the tank line, and that could cause, you know, my Dragoons to try to come in. But seeing how I'm trying to keep track of all my units, I make sure that they don't do that very thing. So yeah, I'm going to be stasing a lot of those siege tanks, and then I'm going to come in from all of those angles. It's a pretty good Zealot run there, very nice storms, getting a lot of his tanks and Vultures, and as I feel like I'm ready, I can go back to my gateways, macro them up, and as soon as I macro those gateways, I see that most of my Dragoons have survived, and all my Zealots died, but that's okay, because you know, Zealots are faster to reproduce and reinforce. And always want to build additional observers if you lost them in the turret fire, because anytime you attack a fortified siege tank line, they're going to have turrets around. So you have to assume that the observers are going to die. As soon as they come in, they're going to die, but they'll serve their purpose, because you definitely need those observers to have spot the Dragoons for the mines, but you don't have time to micromanage the observers to just get barely in range but not get killed by the turrets. So it's better to just let them die, because you don't have time to micromanage every single unit, because you already are very heavily taxed by trying to use all your storms, your stasises, spread your Zealots and Dragoons. So you don't have time to babysit your observers. You just let them die. If they die, they die. If they survive, that's great. But you just want to reproduce observers to make sure your new army doesn't just fall prey to mines, because Terran will scramble to reset up their mines, and then if you get careless with your army, you might, you know, lose a good portion of them by just running into mines while you're trying to reinforce. But yeah, as you saw there, I was just rehawking my units, and yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys want to, I could definitely leave the map, the file for the map, if you guys want to practice, you know, beating a Maxed Terran Army. I'll leave that in the description box below, and hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks.